What is up, everyone? Brandon Ferst, aka First Report, representing the First Off the Bench podcast network. Everyone comes off the bench. We are first. Welcome in to the original call to post here on the network. We break down everything that we have to offer in the thoroughbred world. Of course, with me, as always, is my friend and co-host, Raider Jim Martinez. You can find Mr. Martinez at Raider Jim 1090. How you doing tonight, sir?
Hey, I'm doing great. What a good time of year. We got March Madness past us. Congratulations to UConn, the men's champions. Congratulations to South Carolina, the women's champion. Did I get that right?
Yep, South Carolina.
Yeah, and yeah. But congratulations to them, and also to all the young ladies who got drafted for the WNBA this past week. I think they're doing great things for the sport, and I hope that we start to see a change in the climate with respect to the salaries and things like that. That's all. I'm going to leave it at that because that's not what this podcast is about. But congratulations to all those college athletes.
Definitely. I saw, I think, a little blurb that two stadiums in DC and Vegas, they're when the Indiana Fever, aka Caitlin Clark, come to town, they're moving to the big arenas, the NBA arenas there. So already hopefully moving in the right direction, get those sold out. And hopefully, yeah, get some money in there. And hopefully we will see those salaries reflect that as well. But here, obviously, kind of the way the podcast has rolled through, obviously, we kind of cleaned up the NFL. Or at least, went over the NFL. I don't think anyone cleaned up in the NFL this year. And then, of course, March Madness. We, put our stamp on that as well. And now it's kind of time to focus towards the summer. Of course, for a lot of us, the summer is, time to go to the beach, things like that. But it's also time to focus on the ponies. Before we get to that, though, I do want to take a moment to talk to you all. Obviously, Coach Lupian isn't on this podcast particular, but there are others that he is, and he asked us to give a little shout out for, he works and he's the tennis coach at San Diego City College. So look, if you're in the Southern California area, Friday, May 10th, it'll be at the Chula Vista Golf Course. It is the 22nd annual Harry West Golf Tournament. You're going to get, that's going to be at 4475 Bonita Road in Bonita, California. And that is going to start at 1 o'clock. You're going to, $130 is going to get you 18 rounds of golf, obviously. Going to get you a post dinner at 5:30. It's going to be a scramble format. There'll also be a hospitality package, some raffles, other contests, and of course, a golf cart. Venmo is accepted, as is, check. Head to San Diego or SDCC Knights. Let me make sure I have that. Yes. No, I'm sorry. SDCityKnights.com. That'll be Knights with a K there. And if you have any questions, Coach's personal cell phone number is, no, I'm just kidding. Could you imagine if I just gave his cell phone number out? Hey, you asked us, but no. If you have any questions, it'll be Irene Mello. That'll be at 619-572-8382. Any questions, give them a call and they will answer whatever you need. And yeah, if you're looking for something to do in May, beautiful weather already, so head on out, support San Diego City College, and have a great day. I mean, beautiful time for golf. Masters just wrapped up. I don't think you're going to shoot like them, but you can have some fun out there. So, but with that being said,
if you sign up to play as an individual, or if you take a foursome and you approach Coach Lupian at the tournament, at the course, and tell him you heard about the tournament on the original call to post, he's going to buy you a beverage of your choice.
Exactly. And we're going to charge him after the fact as well, but he doesn't know that. We can talk about it here because Coach, big time sports fan, horse racing isn't on his radar, but yeah, it's make sure you go say hello to him, and he'll probably buy you more than one beverage, and you can tell him First Report told you that. But with that being said, time to focus towards horse racing. Now, obviously, just to kind of reset the stage, if you will, kind of how the horse racing season goes, there really isn't an off season in horse racing. December, late November, December, and kind of early January, you could maybe make that case. But when you have Santa Anita starting, I think the 26th, or at least that Monday corresponding, we're getting those big races, maybe not the summertime big races, but not necessarily an off season. And the early part of the season, kind of where we are now, the winter spring session, if you will, a lot of the focus is on, 2 or 3 big stakes races, but mainly the qualifiers for both the Kentucky Oaks and the Kentucky Derby. And of course, the Oaks is for the fillies, the 3-year-old fillies, which will be ran on Friday, the day before, of course, the Kentucky Derby. So just kind of getting that all sorted. And then, of course, once the Triple Crown wraps up, we know what time that is, especially here in San Diego. Very special. It's time to look ahead to those Breeders' Cup Challenger races, figure out who's going to be running at Del Mar this November in the Breeders' Cup. Can't wait to break that all down. But ironically enough, that was kind of the last time we talked to y'all, where we tied a ribbon on the Breeders' Cup last year at Santa Anita. But now we do, of course, focus our attention to the quote-unquote Triple Crown. But we are going to start with the standings for the Kentucky Oaks. Of course, if you do hear Oaks in a horse racing name, that's going to signify that is for the fillies and mares. This case, it'll be just for 3-year-old fillies. And, as we've kind of mentioned before, it's not just, hey, you get called to be invited. You got to earn your way into both the Derby and the Oaks. In terms of the Oaks standings, all of the races have been wrapped up. Now it's just a matter of kind of figuring out who's going to be running and all that. But at the top, we have Tarifa, the 150 points, very impressive run out of that filly. Has only made a 420,000, but it's kind of hard as a 3-year-old or 2-year-old and 3-year-old to really rack up those big money. Number 2 is Where's My Ring, the 125 points. Power Squeeze in third with 120. Leslie's Rose, 115. Torpedo Anna, 105. Just FYI, the Breeders' Cup filly winner of last year with 90 points. West Omaha, also with 90. Gin 66. Jody's Pride, 65. And Fiona's Magic at 60 to kind of round out the top 10. Obviously, we will have the full breakdown of both the Oaks and Derby when we have post positions, when we have a full field, when we have morning lines. But just to kind of wet our palates, if you will, Raider Jim, any thoughts kind of here on the early part? You know what? I just realized, I apologize, Raider Jim. I did skip a segment. We will hit that segment after the Oaks leaderboard. I hope I didn't throw you off too much there. But your thoughts on the early thoughts on the Oaks and horses to watch in this one?
Oh, from my standpoint, I'm telling you what, Tarifa's going to be hard to beat. Godolphin and Brad Cox, they got a real good runner right there. Have her trained very, very well, and watch for her to be the one to beat. Also watch Leslie's Rose. Leslie's Rose just won back earlier this month on the 5th of April, won the Ashland Grade 1 over in Keeneland. So familiar with Keeneland, nice horse, runs in that region. Watch for Leslie's Rose. Ways and Means, Chad Brown's horse is one you got to watch for. Now that's a little bit more down from out of the top 5, closer in the top 10. Also, you have Power Squeeze, Jorge Delgado, and Our Pretty Woman, another Steve Asmussen horse. Steve Asmussen always in the hunt. And then just FYI, Bill Mott's horse and Torpedo Anna. Those were other horses that I would mention to keep an eye on. But right now, I say it's going to be Leslie Rose, just FYI, and Tarifa would be my top 3 that I'm going to pay attention to. Start tracking the workouts a little more and see what kind of post position draws they get.
Yeah, Tarifa is definitely, I think it was a 101 in her debut. Just really caught everyone, or took everyone's kind of, oh, hey, look at this one. Going forward, been very consistent, living in the 90s, or at least upper 80s. And, just FYI is obviously a horse you brought up, but one horse that not only, it's a little bit tough. You get caught in the bias of the pretty much, last year's 2-year-old filly of the year. I don't know if that was official, but at least won the fillies in the Breeders' Cup. And juvenile fillies, I should say. And it's really interesting to see that horse kind of, I don't want to say struggle this year, but, not maybe the 3-year-old campaign you would expect from a 2-year-old champion like her. But when it comes to the Oaks, this is usually more wide open than the Derby. I don't believe we get 20 runners like we will with the Derby, or at least, they want to fill in those 20. I think it's just a little less, maybe 16 or 15. So, maybe a little more wide open in that sense, but I really do like, just for FYI and Tarifa, those two horses do look like the class of the field. But you did bring up Leslie's Rose as well, which has been very impressive this season. West Omaha, I don't know if you brought her up, but she's been a horse, 90 points, really a beautiful horse. You hate to kind of get stuck in that side of it, but has been just doesn't really necessarily look like a 3-year-old filly. I don't know. There's something about her that definitely catches my attention. But I think the Oaks, I sometimes look forward to the Oaks more than the Derby, just because sometimes I guess I'm more intrigued with the fillies, or at least the filly division. And it kind of carries over to the Breeders' Cup. I kind of go back to the Swiss Skydiver Monomoy Girl, and there's another one that I'm missing, Clairiere, and all those. But it just seems like over the past few years, the filly division has been, maybe a little more intriguing, or at least a little deeper when it comes to that top of the top. And, obviously, I'm sure Flightline's dominance a few years back will kind of cut into that as well. But do want to kind of switch it back, getting back into the swing of things here, the Call to Post. Always check your notes, kids. I thought I could just roll through it without checking notes, but checking what we should have started with were some of the other races that have no bearing on the Kentucky Derby or the Kentucky Oaks, but obviously they are grade 1s, grade 2s, and big money races. Thoughts on those? I know for myself, I had my eye on, as always, the Saudi Cup. And I'll tell you, it's really hard in January to kind of put a crown on a quote unquote race of the year. But the battle between Senor Buscador and Ushba Tesoro was, I mean, if we get 2 more of those throughout the year at any grade, I think we'll be very, very happy on that one. Raider Jim, your thoughts on the early kind of winter, early spring stakes races?
Yeah, my notes, I kind of just scratched out some stuff from March, from early April. We had the Florida Derby with Fierceness, a horse that we're going to be talking about when we talk about the Kentucky Derby. Fierceness is a horse to be reckoned with, let me tell you. And then we also had, where is the other one I want? The Santa Anita Derby. That's right up the road from us here, our hometown track. Phil D'Amato got that one with his horse Stronghold. That was a fantastic race, 1 1/8 mile. And then we also have had the Jenny Wiley, which is Chad Brown got that one, and that was back on the 13th. So that one just ran recently. I kind of just, like I say, I stuck to March and April because I was a little pressed on time getting my notes ready. But yeah, the Saudi Cup, what do you say? There's always something, it's always an exciting time over there in the UAE, and they never disappoint. And again, we'll see what happens. I was just thinking about that when I was putting my notes together. It's like one more season that Maximum Security is not collecting his money. What do you think of that?
Yeah, it's that's kind of like the elephant in the room, but it's an elephant that you don't even really notice anymore, just because it's been there for so long, hanging over. And I kind of say it with a smile on my face, and it is, a serious matter in that case. But yeah, it's definitely hanging over. One other race, obviously, the Saudi Cup, I believe, is the richest in the world. I don't know if anything else has surpassed it, but I know it's 20 million. Yeah. But the other big kind of stakes race early on was the Pegasus and National Treasure, a horse that we talked about. I want to say this is National Treasure's year 4 run, but got the job done out at Gulfstream. Very, very impressive run there. So plenty of money being tossed around to kind of some of the older horses, but really this early part, and they go back all the way to October. But these early races in the, calendar year, a lot of the big ones it's time for the 3-year-olds to kind of shine, find their path to the Derby or Oaks in that one. So switching to regularly scheduled programming, going to the Derby. Oh, yeah.
If I may,
Yes, sir.
If I may, there was one other day of note that I wanted to make sure to mention because, when a batter goes up and he has a great 3 for 3, 4 for 4 day, has several RBIs and all those good things. So I got to talk about this. This was early March, March the 3rd. Bob Baffert had himself a day up at Santa Anita. He won the San Felipe Grade 2. He won the Santa Anita Handicap Grade 1, and he won the Frank Kilroy Mile Grade 1. He had all 3 winner's circle races, and that was, you say what you will about the man. Frankie Del Torre was riding 2 of those, and then on the du jour, which won the Kilroy Mile, he had Flavian Pratt on board. So, I mean, hats off to Mr. Baffert. He did his work that day and paid off well.
Yeah, it's that's another kind of, other thing hanging over the Derby and Oaks these days, the Churchill ban and all that stuff. But say what you will, as we've said, kind of about Baffert, might not do things fully. There are certain things that, maybe you could call plausible deniability, this or that. But when it comes down to it, that man knows how to win. He has an eye for horses, and he knows how to get these horses ready for the big races. And a lot of the times you see him. I mean, even when we talk about the Del Mar leaderboard, it's like, Baffert's in 3rd, and you go, oh, what? And then you look and he goes, oh, well, he's had a 1/3 of the runnings that everyone else has had. Everyone's got 35 starts. He's got 10, and he's top 3. Really kind of shows you got to be a special horse to be in Baffert's barn. And it's definitely, paying off, especially out here in Santa Anita. He's a West Coast legend, for better or worse. But moving on, as we kind of were on the Oaks points leaderboard, we look at the Derby. Already talked about a few of these horses already so far, but we do start at the top with Sierra Leone. 155 points, just shy of 900, or excuse me, just shy of $1 million in earnings. And you have Fierceness. This is a horse that's already made 1.7 million. Just the beginning of its 3-year-old career. 136 Derby points. Catching Freedom, 125, along with Stronghold, already mentioned. Both of those horses have 125 points. Resilience is in 5th with 110. Forever Young, Japanese horse, 100 points, along with Endlessly, also with 100. Timberlake has 81. Dornoch has 75, and Just a Touch rounds out the top 10 with 75 points. Now, what's interesting to me here is we have 3 horses that are already in the $1 million+ range in terms of winning. And a horse that I kind of already brought up, and I will mention in a moment, is Forever Young, already over 2 million in earnings for there. But Raider Jim, your thoughts on the kind of early contenders for the Kentucky Derby?
Well, to get the news out of the way and the elephant in the room, I can tell you it won't be Moose. Moose is Zidane Racing Stables horse, trained by Bob Baffert. It has been decided by Churchill Downs. No, there's no exceptions. No, you're not going to put that horse into the Kentucky Derby because it is trained by Bob Baffert. Now, Zidane had the option to move their horses being trained by Bob Baffert to another stable while he was, finishing up his suspension, which they have extended until 2025. They chose not to do that. So now Zidane Racing is suing Churchill under the cause of promissory estoppel, meaning, wait a minute, we thought that this suspension was going to end come 2024. Because of that, from the time that Medina Spirit got disqualified and Bob Baffert got suspended in 2021, Zidane went out and just started buying up a bunch more horses, training them, thinking that they were going to be able to run them in the Derby. And that's not the case. And so now Zidane is saying, sorry, because of you and breaking your promise, we spent all this money. Now we'll see how far that goes. This is the old school, old blue blood money over there in Kentucky. Churchill Downs, I really don't think Zidane has a chance in the courtroom, but we let the law play its course. Moose, what does that mean to the Kentucky Derby, that horse not participating? Moose has won the 2024 Arkansas Derby, the Grade 2 San Vicente, and in late 2023, won the Grade 1 American Pharoah Stakes, and placed in the FanDuel Breeders' Cup Juvenile. That horse would have been a contender and would have been fun to watch, but it's not going to be the situation where we have Bob Baffert having one of his favorites or the favorite in the race, having a match race or challenging coming down the stretch. But we'll see. Again, the Baffert story at Churchill is not over, unfortunately. As you put it during March Madness, it's kind of like with all that's going on and all the great talent we have that's going to step on the track or on the court, Calipari has to say, "I quit," just so he can get in the headlines. And so it's kind of a similar situation, although I don't think Bob Baffert is saying, "Hey, put the spotlight on me and let's remind everybody what I did." So anyway, that's a personal opinion. Sierra Leone, let's get on to the horses that are going to run. Horse to be beat at this point in time has already won the Bluegrass Grade 1, won the Risen Star Grade 2. Chad Brown and Tyler Gaffalone, what a great trainer jockey combination. But Fierceness is beating times from Triple Crown winners. And that's Todd Pletcher. Todd Pletcher's got that one underhand. Catching Freedom for another Brad Cox horse. As you said, Forever Young, winning money like there's no tomorrow. I don't know how much of that is impacted by these giant purses that they have over in the UAE. Probably has some impact on it, but there's a horse that I like that I think, in my estimation, what I've read up on and heard some, the people who really know what they're talking about mention, Just a Touch, another Brad Cox horse, probably a top 3 at this point in time if they were to step on the track today. We'll see. And then Stronghold, Phil D'Amato. It's the only California horse that's going to run in the Kentucky Derby. So best of luck to Phil.
Yeah, I'm kind of on that same wavelength. Fierceness, the Florida Derby run. Just do yourselves a favor, folks, and go watch that horse run the Florida Derby. And you talked about the times that this horse has been posting. This is one of the few horses in the last 5 to 10 years that I look at and I go, not only do I think this horse can win the Derby, but this is a potential Triple Crown horse. Now, the way the Triple Crown is run these days, and a lot of horses, we look at the Preakness, and the Preakness is the Derby horse versus 8 to 10 other also eligibles essentially for the Derby that sneak their way in. And then the Derby, second, third, and fourth horses skip the Preakness for a chance to run in the Belmont. So it's so difficult to win. I mean, it was always difficult to win the Triple Crown, but now with that path, it's so much more difficult. But this is a horse that wants to lead from the front. And sometimes when you have not only 3-year-olds, but any horse, but especially for 3-year-olds, that want to lead from the front, and you expect that horse to be a 2-turn horse, it needs not only speed, but it needs stamina. And I think this horse checks all the boxes. Fierceness, definitely a horse to contend with. But the one thing that's kind of, a bit of a wild card when it comes to the Derby, and I somewhat mentioned it, is the 20-horse field. If you get a bad post position, it might not matter how fast your horse is or how much stamina. If this horse gets kind of lost in the wash and has to expend an extra 15 to 20% to get to where it needs to be, might not have that later on. Sometimes we do see those situations happen. So that's why, of course, we're not going into too much detail until we get those post position, but Fierceness on paper, my goodness, the speed figures are off the charts, and just the eye test, very, very impressive. And then Forever Young. I think after the, what was it? I guess technically it was the second Breeders' Cup Del Mar ever hosted, but the first one we went to, we weren't at there the first day or the second day, but after Japan, essentially winning back-to-back Breeders' Cup races. And then even last year, I don't know, was it Ushba Tesoro who was in the Derby that was turning a lot of eyes? I don't know if it was that horse, but it was definitely a certain Japanese horse. And we've seen a lot of Japanese horses in the Breeders' Cup not only run well, but win. And Forever Young, and I do believe, I didn't go in and fully look, but the UAE purses will somewhat skew things. But this is a horse that I think we've even seen, these international horses. It doesn't have to be a Great Britain or a French horse that comes over. It can be one of these Japanese horses, and we'll see if they can break through this year with Forever Young. That would be very, very interesting. But I do definitely have my eye. And then, of course, Stronghold. It's difficult to kind of find a quote unquote underdog right now, because at the end of the day, I haven't watched all of these races. So you can't really handicap, and the morning line people have, the people that are doing it, they get paid to do it. And I wish I could, but I don't myself. So you do have to kind of look for those ones and hope that you do see fierceness somehow, some way. It comes out morning line 3-1, something like that, and the number gets inflated and you can feel good about it. But early on, I think fierceness, Forever Young, Stronghold, definitely horses to keep an eye on, and Sierra Leone, you can miss that. But going back to Baffert, I do kind of have to, and I don't want to say sympathize with Zidane. It's Zayday. It's Zidane, yeah. They have been very loyal to Bob Baffert through all of this, for better or worse. But I do kind of understand the gripe. I'm not condoning anything that happened with Baffert or anything, but if you are said, hey, you're suspended until this date, okay. And then to extend it, I don't know the circumstances behind it. But it's, I feel like this is probably a settlement. I'm sure, maybe Zidane gets paid X number of dollars to essentially drop the lawsuit. I think it would be a very interesting trial to follow if it does get that far. But for Baffert and company, whether you agreed with the suspension at the time or you thought it wasn't enough, or whether it was too light, not really the point I'm trying to make. It's just, for me, it does seem a little, I don't know if unfair is the word, but maybe disingenuous to just go, actually, no, we're going to push it to 2025. Because who's to say? I mean, how can anyone believe that in 2025 we'll see Bob Baffert? And who's to say that in January of next year we don't get a news alert that, hey, it's been extended? Because, I mean, at some point you might have to call it like it is. And if it's an indefinite suspension, it's an indefinite suspension. It's fine. They have every right to do whatever they want, but it is a little unfortunate. But once again, these entities, they're not going to miss any meals, anything like that, if things don't go their way. So it's hard to feel too much sympathy for them. But on just kind of the sporting level, you do kind of, maybe shrug and go, yeah, that would be, something that would be, that you could understand them being frustrated with. And really, at the end of the day, I think the sport would be better with Muth running. He served his time once again, whether you agreed with it or not. I just think the sport is better when you have the best trainers and horses running. And once again, this is not on the level of the man's name escapes me, but the trainer who just went to jail for really doing some very, very, very harmful things. It's not on that level. It is cheating and it is putting horses at risk. I do understand that, but he did his time, and we'll see. Hopefully next year in the Kentucky Derby. And correct me if I'm wrong, Raider Jim. New York also has a ban on him, which would eliminate him for the Belmont. But
I believe he's reinstated in New York.
So that's another, going back to the fierceness, and way too early for me to be talking Triple Crown. I understand that, but hey, we're here, we're talking, let's talk about it. That's another part of it. If I would have to assume, if everything goes as planned, we'll see Muth in either the Preakness or the Belmont, because I don't believe Maryland has suspended him, or Pimlico has suspended him at all. So more than likely we could see that horse run in the Preakness, and that's even a bigger challenge for whatever horse comes out of the Kentucky Derby, to then face a quote unquote fresh Muth, which hard enough going kind of even playing field, but with that horse probably getting an extra 2 or 3 weeks off could be interesting. So with that being said, time to get to some of the quote, some of the races that we do have an idea for this weekend. We got 4 to break down, 2 in Keeneland, 2 at Santa Anita. 2 grade 2s and 2 grade 3s. So some good stuff. Once again, none of these races have any bearing on the Derby or the Oaks, so just keep that in mind. But we are going to start in Kentucky at Keeneland. I am going to throw a little curveball here on you, Raider Jim. I do apologize again. We're going to be talking about the Elkhorn first, because I do believe that's what comes up first. Yes,
It is
it
race 8.
is.
Yes.
Yes, so it's going to be race 8 at Keeneland. This will be Saturday, April 20th. This is a grade 2 Elkhorn Stakes, $350,000 purse for 4-year-old horses and up. A mile and a half on the turf. Probably one of the longer races you will see here in North America. 3 turns around the Keeneland Oval. And this should be going off about 4:45 Eastern time, once again on the turf. Raider Jim, your thoughts on the grade 2 Elkhorn Stakes?
Yeah, I don't think you're going to see any real upsets here. It's going to be an 11 horse field. On the rail right now, you have Grey Wizard out of Ireland at 15-1, but it's not going to make any real impact in the race. The horses that I like, if I was going to pick the 4 that I'm going to pick right now, it's going to be number 4, Bold Act out of Ireland. That's a Charles Appleby trained horse. Already a morning line of 3-2 to tell you what kind of attention and respect that horse is getting. And then I like, following that is Winning Spirit, horse out of Germany. Big horse, strong horse. I got to watch that horse run its last race, and it just a beast. Beast of a horse, is definitely going to challenge Bold Act. The one that I like also, number 10, Missed the Cut. Last 2 starts out of Santa Anita on the turf. Loves the turf, likes the turf very, very much. Watch for Miss the Cut to finish in the money. And then underneath one more, add number 11 to your ticket, Silver Knot, also from Santa Anita, also West Coast horse, also Charles Appleby horse, going to be ridden by Flavian Pratt. So you can't go wrong with that combination. So it's Bold Act, Winning Spirit, Missed the Cut, and Silver Knot. Those are the 4 I'm looking at in the Elkhorn.
I got 5 to talk about, and a little bit of overlap in here on my side. I'm big on the 4 and the 10 as well, Bold Act and Miss the Cut. Leaning a little more towards Miss the Cut, just because I do think there will be more value there. I think Bold Act, this horse not only has been dominant overseas, but this horse is 1 for 1 at Keeneland on that turf, going a mile and a half. So that familiarity of an Irish horse coming over has made that trek, if you will, knows, what to expect, in a horse's mind, at least, will feel more comfortable than some of, maybe these other Irish horses or overseas horses. And, when we are talking about long distance turf horses, the Irish, the British horses, if you will, are always going to be a factor. And staying on that, I have 3 kind of, long shots, and one of them is the 1 horse, Grey Wizard. Look, this horse morning line of 15-1. Despite it being a Irish horse, this is a horse that's ran a lot in North America. 1 for 1 at Keeneland. I think there's a lot of value here. Before last race, this horse was running in the low 90s, and at 15-1, I'll pay to see how that goes. And technically, I mean, the best race that this horse has ran this, in recent memory, I should say, was at the Belmont, at Belmont, not the Belmont, at Belmont, went 2 miles on that turf and ran very well, posted a 92. One thing to keep an eye on here, and a bit of a, I don't want to say red flag, but maybe it's something to, think about with Grey Wizard. Hasn't ran since last July. At Saratoga. So a very long layoff for this horse, but not terribly out of the ordinary early on, just because certain horses get their season started at different times, but obviously ended last season very short for Grey Wizard. Highland Chief, another Irish horse, is another one that I think has some value. Look, 5-1, maybe not a ton of value, but I do think this gets maybe closer to 7 or 8-1. Haven't seen this horse last year since it ran in the Breeders' Cup turf, and full disclosure, did not run very well there, but this is a horse that's been in the hundreds on turf at a distance. And, I'm going to throw that Breeders' Cup turf out just because this is such a big drop in class for this horse. Right. This horse was 27-1 in the Breeders' Cup turf. So with all due respect, probably didn't need to be there, kind of went out looking to see if they could finish top 5, make a good amount of money. Didn't get the job done there, but we're not talking about that type of class here. This is a grade 2, really good field, but not a Breeders' Cup Turf field. My final one to keep an eye on is Foreign Relations. This is another total value pick. Will need to improve on the 88 it ran last time. The last time this horse did run in a grade 2, it was the Turf Cup at Kentucky Downs, running 1.5 miles. Didn't run terribly well. However, ran in the United Nations, ran very well. That was a very tough field for that horse to be in, and finished 6th, but only 3 lengths off the leader in that one. And that was a grade 1, ran a 95. Now, once again, I'm going all the way back to last July. I'm looking for that form here, and at 15-1, again, I'll pay to see if we can regain that form on the 8-horse Foreign Relations. One last thing on Miss the Cut, another reason why I kind of gave it just maybe a little bit of a leg up on Bold Act. Absolutely love the jockey trainer combo of John Sadler and Irad Ortiz. Irad Ortiz last year, for my money, was the best jockey. Might have had one of the best seasons overall last year in my mind. It was so impressive to see him take control of the top horses and really run incredibly well. So great jockey trainer combo there. Moving on to race number 9 at Keeneland. This will be the grade 3 Ben Ali Stakes. This is for 4-year-olds and up, going 1 mile and 3/16 on the dirt. 300K is going to be the purse here. Raider Jim, your thoughts on the grade 3 Ben Ali Stakes?
Oh, this is where First Report has to indulge me and kind of refrain from rolling his eyes too much at me. This is when he becomes Sam Malone, the bartender, and I become Cliff Clavin. And I'm going to tell you some great facts about this race. Actually, it has been a lie, is how you pronounce this race. It's a lie, AH-LIE. First run in 1917, the Ben Ali Stakes is named for James Ben Ali Hagen. He was a lawyer who made his fortune during the gold rush. The guy was born in, I believe it was in the early 1800s. He used most of his money to create the Rancho del Paso horse breeding farm near Sacramento, which at the time was the biggest breeding farm in the world. And then subsequently, he bought several thousands of acres of bluegrass in Lexington, Kentucky. He owned the Elmendorf Farms in Kentucky. And it was in 17, when, as I stated already, that they first did the commemorative run of this race in honor of James Ben Ali Hagen. There you are. Bet you we're hoping you didn't have to put up with that right off out of the gate.
No,
I was beside myself.
For me, when I put this all together, I kind of in my head, when you're typing some of these up, you wonder, at least in my mind, I'm like, which one's Raider Jim? Because there's always one, always. And I love it. I think it's great to learn about that. We all know about the Bing Crosbys and the Curlins, of the world, the namesakes. But yeah, I didn't even know how to pronounce it, even though I will say phonetically, at least on DRF, it definitely ALI. But yeah, this incredible background there. And 1917 too. That's a long namesake race. So very good stuff there, Raider Jim.
And there was just one period because the original race course in Lexington where they held the race closed down for 5 years, and then they reopened. And I think that's when they reopened under, I forget what name. But other than that, it has been consistently run year in, year out. And what a tribute to the gentleman. I really appreciate that kind of history and loyalty from the sport to the man. But in this weekend's race, this Ali Stakes, favorite is going to be King's Barn right now at 2-1. Definitely the horse to beat. Todd Pletcher, ridden by Luis Saez. Now, here's where there's a little discrepancy between what the handicappers think and what I think. They have then, their next horse is number 3, Smile Happy at 3-1. For me, there is too much distance between when it has run last and the results. It hasn't won a race. Smile Happy, the number 3 horse, has not been in the winner's circle since May of 2023. I don't see Smile Happy being the challenge or the threat to King's Barn, but I do see Time for Trouble, the number 1 horse with Flavian Pratt, and right now great value at 6-1. That horse has something going for it, and don't be surprised when Time for Trouble finishes in the money. And probably number 9 on the outside. So you've got the rail horse, you've got the outside horse, the number 9 horse, War Campaign. Tyler Gaffalone is going to be on the saddle in that one. Time for Trouble could finish 4th if you're going to do if you want to do a superfecta ticket, something like that. But my top 3 are going to be King's Barn, Time for Trouble, War Campaign. I would even probably replace Smile Happy as a 4th with the number 7 horse, Dynamic One, out of Kentucky. That's going to be Todd Pletcher and Irad Ortiz. Dangerous combination anytime they hit the track.
Yeah, I'm pretty much in the same. I actually, on my notes here for Smile Happy, one of the notes I put was questionable value here. I don't necessarily see it at 3-1 in this field. Last 2 runs, 87 and 80. Not only are we working in the wrong direction, but an 80 in last run for a 3-1 horse in this field. I don't see the value there. I don't think this horse making my ticket unless it gets closer to 6 to 7-1, which may happen. But definitely questionable there. For me, I'm actually going to go with War Campaign. I like this horse a lot. I love Tyler Gaffalione. And in terms of the value at 4-1, maybe even moves up a little bit. This will be its 18th race, so kind of a wily veteran. There was only one other grade 3 run, and that was last time out, and it was the Essex Handicap. Ran in 93, ran very well at 7-1. Finished 5 lengths off the lead, but went down to First Mission, who was very, very good that day. So I like the value of War Campaign. Post position could be a bit of an issue, but that front stretch is so long that we're starting essentially from the beginning of the front stretch. So I do think there's plenty of time to get to where this horse wants to be. I do still really like King's Barn. However, I do wonder, after last time we saw this horse run, it was in an optional claiming. I'm a little, I don't want to say turned off by certain horses that go from optional claiming or allowances to grade 3s or something like that. I mean, this was a horse that was running in the Kentucky Derby last year. So my question, is always, why are we running and then optional claiming? I don't want to say alarm bells go off, but it's not something I like to see. And then paired with the 2-1, tough there, but jockey trainer combo is off the charts. 4 out of 6 in the winner's circle. I'll need to see a little more value there in that one. Laughing Boy at 15-1. I think we could possibly see something here, maybe underneath tickets, something like that. If you want to maybe go King's Barn and War Campaign, but you're looking for maybe a little more value on that exotic, Laughing Boy might be one to think about underneath. I think there's a lot of value here, but the big question is the jump up in class. This is a horse that's only ran in ungraded stakes races, and in one of those ungraded stakes races, this horse ran a 58, and that was in March. So once again, you understand the 15-1 morning line, but I'm looking for some value, and Laughing Boy is definitely a horse that caught my eye. This is another horse that you also mentioned, Dynamic One, the 7 horse. Todd Pletcher, Irad Ortiz. I mean, what more can you say about those two Hall of Famers? This horse, however, unfortunately, seems to have lost its top form. Was running in the 90s. You go all the way back to, and this is all the way back in June of 2022, but ran in 98 in the Suburban. And even before that, ran in 99 at Churchill. Was looking really good. Since then, has not made it into the winner's circle. Maybe this is the time. Maybe this horse is getting rolling in the right direction. Last time out in the Challenger, ran in 85. We'll need to improve on that in this one. Once again, I'd like to see this maybe get a little closer 2, maybe 10 to 1. One positive though, I do think this horse very, very comfortable at this distance. And 1.75 miles, like I said, 2 large turns heading into this one, plus, 2 runs through that wide front stretch. So definitely something to keep an eye on there. I think it is probably going to be a 2-horse race. I think it's just a question of whether or not King's Barn, I don't want to say will be up to the challenge, but running in an optional claiming last time out, big jump up in class. However, this horse has ran even at higher classes in its past. But I want to see get me to 4 to 1. And if you get 4 to 1 on War Campaign and 4 to 1 on King's Barn, I will feel very, very good there. I don't know how that happens. Maybe everyone just goes all in on Smile Happy and doesn't listen to us, which might be the only positive of someone not listening to us. But with that being said, moving on to Santa Anita. This is, of course, right up the road from us. We have the Grade 3 Californian Stakes. This will be race number 7 at Santa Anita. We're going 1 1/8 on the dirt, $100,000 purse here. Raider Jim, your thoughts on the Grade 3 Californian?
Yeah, small field, only 5 horses, so this is a little easier to handicap and put the horses in order. I do like the favorite, number 2, Judge Miller. This will be the longest distance that Judge Miller has run. However, if you look at his last race out that he won handily by 11 lengths, I don't think that the extra distance is going to be too much of a problem. So then and that's going to be Mike Smith in the saddle. Then we have to just figure out who's going to be 2 and 3. Some people really like Mr. Fist, Bob Baffert's horse out of the 5 spot. I like Mixto. Mixto's a 3-horse myself. That's a Doug O'Neill horse out of Kentucky. 5 to 2 right now. So I like Judge Miller, Mixto, probably Mr. Fisk. However, Mr. Fisk could be upset by Mystification. Mystification, definitely the other Doug O'Neill entry at 12 to 1, great value, and would be a great horse to come in and upset the party. So 2, 3, and 5 are the sure things. 2, 3, and 4 would be your upset ticket, if you ask me. Fascinating fact about Judge Miller out of the Curlin line, the Curlin bloodline, is also brother to Clairiere.
Yep. Curlin is I mean, I don't know the stats on it, but has to be a top 5 sire.
Yeah.
Just everywhere. That and Tappet. It seems like that you see Tappets and Curlin, pedigree everywhere. And that's where I'm going to start as well at 4 to 5 on the morning line, and it's probably going to get lower. I mean,
oh yeah,
I wouldn't be
3 to 5
surprised to
probably.
see this go 1 or 2 to 5, which, you only have 5 horses running. You got to really drop some dollars down to play that game. Feel free to, but yeah, this horse is the class of the field. No doubt about it. Now, I don't want to say poke holes in it, but try and find a reason why, possibly. I think you kind of mentioned it, but this will be the longest race of its career. Did stretch out to 1 mile. It's only its 4th career run. Got a very late start in its 3-year-old campaign, but started out at Del Mar in a maiden special rate, ran in 92, broke its maiden at Santa Anita on opening day for Santa Anita last December, ran in 94. Dominated in that field, and then last time out in an optional claiming ran at 105. Very, very impressive in that one, won by 11 lengths. And of course, you have Mike Smith aboard. That's another thing to keep an eye on. So we will be keeping an eye there. But once again, value-wise, I don't see it. So once again, as Raider Jim kind of alluded to, you got to find the underneath, and I found myself in the same predicament you were, Raider Jim, splitting hairs between the 3 and the 5, and I came to the same conclusion you did. I like the 3 a little more than the 5. Doug O'Neill, great, obviously fantastic trainer. But this is a horse that's now dropping down to Grade 3s. I love class drops a lot. Very similar to Judge Miller, a lightly raced 4-year-old. This will only be its 11th run. The blinkers are coming off. Took a while for this horse to kind of break its maiden. But I mean, you look at the horses that this horse has lost to: New Grange, New Gate, you know, a lot, Reincarnate, some of the top horses in the 3-year-old field, or at least last year's 3-year-old field, into the 4-year-old. Mixto dropping down. I really, really do like that over Mr. Fisk, but it is a Bob Baffert horse. Of course, the 5 Mr. Fisk I'm speaking of. So you have to keep that in mind, a force to be reckoned with. But I think there's a little bit more to Mixto than Mr. Fisk. I was intrigued by Mystification as well. I am a little concerned. The only races of, you know, 2-turn races Mystification has been in have been on turf. You do wonder if that's a possibility, but at the same time, I do kind of put that back into the back burner because Doug O'Neill knows way more about this horse than I do. He's putting him in this race for a reason. And if, you know, he didn't think this horse could run 2 turns on dirt, we wouldn't see this horse. So that's something also there to keep in mind. But this might be a race that, you know, maybe you just sit back and enjoy. You don't really put anything on the line for, or, you know, maybe find yourself a Quinella with something underneath Judge Miller, but I don't see how anybody beats the Judge in this one. Moving on to our final race we'll be talking about. It is the Grade 3 Providencia Stakes at Santa Anita. We are going 1 mile and an eighth on the turf. And as I kind of told Raider Jim before we hit record, you know, full disclosure, I don't like to get negative, folks, if I can help it. Sometimes the situation calls for it. This is a situation that calls for it. This might be in the call to the original call to post history. This might be the weakest field we've ever talked about for a Grade 3, for a graded stakes period ever. If you would have given me a blindfold and showed me these horses and told me what class are we in, I would have probably said allowance or optional claiming. Yet this is a Grade 3. Just wanted to throw that out there, a disclaimer. Raider Jim, your thoughts on the Grade 3 Providencia Stakes?
Yeah, I don't think there's any surprises in this one like there isn't, you know, in the California Stakes. It's Judge Miller. Providencia Stakes, it's going to be number 3 Maduro. Why? Well, so far the horse hasn't lost. It's had 3 races, 3 times to the winner's circle. Trained very, very, very well. Peter Yurton has done his thing. And already the morning line, this is very similar to the race before this. Maduro already at 6-5, probably going to go down, you know, for sure 4-5, something like that. So there's not a lot of value in that one. So who are we going to put underneath that? Me, I'm going to put Circle of Trust, the number 2 horse at 4-1, not a bad horse. And also number 4, Doug O'Neill, once again at 5-1 with Lamborghini, California horse, Edwin Maldonado on the saddle. I like Maduro, number 3, 2 Circle of Trust, 4 Lamborghini. Now, you want to go stretch it a little bit and get some value, and you could really mix it up here. The outside horse, Pink Whitney, Doug O'Neill's other entry. I think Doug's going to have a good day. Not news to anybody. He always has good weekends. But I think on Saturday, he's going to have a pretty productive day. So I do like number 8 to be considered as an add-on underneath at 8-1 right now. Great, great, great value.
Yeah, you know, as I said, this is, you know, as a Grade 3, the top run we've seen out of these horses is going to be an 81. So that just, you know, it's kind of just gives you an idea of where we are.
Shiloh's Mistress, the 1 horse. Shiloh's Mistress at 6-1 is great value. However, it looks like Shiloh's Mistress kind of took a little bit of a step back from where it was late last year. And so I don't know. Umberto Rispoli, though, you've got him on the saddle, and if anybody can make it happen, he will. So I won't be surprised to see Shiloh's Mistress finish in the money. But for me right now, that's not going to be on my ticket.
Yeah, it's for me, it's the start as well with the 3 horse Maduro, undefeated. By far the top speed figures, the top 2, maybe even the top 3. With a 75, 80, and 81, by far the most consistent horse in this field, obviously at 3 for 3 in its career. But I do think Maduro gets the job done here. Unfortunately, similar to Judge Miller, I don't believe we are going to see any value here. I think 3 to 5 will maybe where this horse ends up. I'd be interested to see, but I think it'll be less than even money on this horse. So once again, we're kind of looking around. I'm on the same boat you are with Circle of Trust at 4 to 1. It's probably the most value in this race. Last time out ran a 74, got its win to break its maiden. Did run in the Jimmy Durante last year. Didn't run terribly well. Only ran a 61, but was 7.5 to 1. So just kind of gives you an idea of what was, maybe expected of this horse and could possibly regain. Now for me, I am actually going to I am going to bring Shiloh's Mistress onto my ticket. I was very impressed with how it ran in the Santa Isabel. Didn't run well in January. It looks like on an artificial surface. Ironically, it ran one of its worst races, but broke its maiden. So, you just take what you can get, but did improve in the Santa Isabel, was 12 to 1, finished 10 lengths off the lead. But to be fair, probably wasn't really a factor in that race. However, in this field, in this grade 3, I think this is a possibility. Once again, you're probably going to need to find this horse underneath. I don't think we see this horse in the top 2. I think it's going to be between the 2 and the 3 horse. And then it's kind of a battle, let's say, to kind of fill out the card. I really do think Shiloh's Mistress could possibly be there. And you kind of also touched on it. Can't really go wrong with Umberto Rispoli out there. He is another one of these West Coast jockeys that you have to take serious, when he's aboard any of these thoroughbreds. But that is all we have for you on this first original call to post of the 2024 calendar year. Raider Jim, your final thoughts.
Final thoughts. One more comment on that last race, the Providencia Stakes, because we just happened to hit on it with one of our little fascinating facts. Number 2, Circle of Trust, who we both really like on our tickets, out of the Tappet bloodline. How about that?
Oh, there you go. Look at that. Look at that. It is. I told you.
There it is. Final thoughts for me is I'm glad to be once again talking about racing, thoroughbred racing. There's positives, there's negatives, and as we go on, finishing up the Triple Crown races, getting into this, closing out the spring, getting into the Del Mar summer and all that, we'll have plenty of facts and figures and things to bring you, and just really, really looking forward to it. Welcome back. Hope you enjoy everything we have to say.
Amen. And quick little scheduling update. We will not be with you next week. Next week, we're going to be talking NFL draft and the NFL side of things. However, week after that, we'll, of course, not only be back with you to break down the Oaks and the Derby, but also kind of get you ready for those Breeders' Cup Challenge races that will be rolling through, and then kind of, being back to our weekly ideas, because those Breeders' Cup races are going to be coming fast and furious. And my final thought, it's kind of the same way I start every season, or the first of the, just enjoy it, because as we realized with the NFL and college basketball, seems like, we give that talk week 1 or, in November for college basketball and say, okay, enjoy this, because the next thing you know, we're going to be talking to you about the national championship game. Enjoy the summer, enjoy the Derby, the Triple Crown season, all that, because more than likely, before you know it, we're going to be hitting record on the Breeders' Cup wrap-up, and we're going to be going, wow, that flew by. So just enjoy it. I think it's going to be a fantastic summer, not just here at Del Mar, but everywhere throughout the country. And then,
Correct.
we gotta remind you, for the 700th time this November, Del Mar will be hosting, of course, the Breeders' Cup. But with that being said, thank you all so much for listening to this episode of the original Call to Post, presented by the First Off the Bench Podcast Network. Everyone comes off the bench. We are first. It is time for you all to go wash your hands and stop hating everybody. We'll talk to you all very soon. Take care.
That's it.